development of the gut microbiome starts early in life. It starts from pregnancy. So the mother's diet, antibiotic use, and genetics, infections, stress, these are all factors that can facilitate and shape the composition of the microbiome. Welcome to True Health. Thank you for tuning in. Today's topic is the effects of stress and diet on gut health. This will be a multiple part series, and today we're going to talk about the microbiome. 90% of all cells in the body are technically non-human. 100 trillion microorganisms exist in the body. So when we think of a microbiome, it's a collection of microbial cells, including bacteria, viruses, protozoa, fungi, and archaea that perform a vast array of metabolic and protective functions. Every bodily surface includes microorganisms. Today's presentation, I'm going to focus primarily on the bacteria of the microbiome and the gut microbiome, gut bacteria. So the skin contains over 1 trillion resident bacteria. The oral cavity has 1,011 bacterial cells that flow from the oral cavity to the stomach per day. There's over 700 different species of bacteria in the mouth. And in the gut, and particularly the distal ileum in the colon, there's anywhere between 300 to 1,000 different species of bacteria in the gut. So there's something really important to understand. There's this complex interaction between the gut bacteria and the host, the human. A very fundamental concept I want you all to keep in mind is that the microbiome, we can think of it, the gut microbiome, as a vital organ. The bacteria play a very important role in a lot of different biochemical mechanisms, pathways in a body, energy metabolism, the breakdown of our nutrients, polysaccharides, or the fermentable dietary fibers that help to produce the short-chain fatty acids, and amino acid production. The bacteria play a role in modulation of the immune function and maturation of our immune system. There are other systems that play a very important, that require the gut microbiome, and that's the gastrointestinal system and the central nervous system. In order for these three systems, the immune system, the gastrointestinal system, and the nervous system, to develop, we require a diverse, very, very diverse eubiotic, microbiotic flora. Okay, it's really, really important that we have an intact microbiome in order for these systems to mature. The gut microbes can play a role in the production of neuropeptides. 95% of serotonin is produced in the gut, and this is facilitated by gut bacteria. But it's important to note that serotonin, it does not cross the blood-brain barrier, but it does influence the nervous system via the vagus nerve. There are several mechanisms by which the neurotransmitters can indirectly and directly influence the nervous system when they're produced in the gut. 50% of dopamine is produced in the gut, and we also see that the gut bacteria facilitate the production of GABA and glutamate. So there is this gut-brain connection. The bacteria facilitate estrogen metabolism. There's a collection of bacteria called the estrobiome that helps with making sure that estrogen is eliminated, broken down and eliminated from the body. Something else that's important to note is that the vitamins, we are a nutrient depleted nation, and it's important to note that the bacteria of the gut facilitates our vitamin stores. So they promote the production of important vitamins such as B12, biotin, and vitamin K. There's a metabolic factory that's happening inside the distal ileum, the colon. Gut bacteria play a role in biotransformation and toxin metabolism. sequestering chemicals and limiting toxin absorption, supporting gut lining. The bacteria is able to help with the elimination of toxins from our bodies. So if we take care of them, they'll help take care of us and anything that we're exposed to. So more than 50% of xenobiotic hormone and toxin detoxification is facilitated by beneficial gut bacteria. There's an interesting emerging field of research called the Oncobiome, an emerging area of investigation into the role specific microbes play in carcinogenesis. In 2013, there was a study that was published in the Journal of the National Cancer Institute, and they found that colorectal cancer patients had a particular elevated amount of fusobacteria, more pro-inflammatory type of bacteria that is implicated in the progression and development of colorectal cancer. There was another study that saw that there was a difference in the gut, the actual microbiome of breast tissue in breast cancer compared to women who did not have breast cancer, a significant difference. So we do understand that now bacteria plays a role in regulation of tumor cell proliferation and influence in cell apoptosis or cell death, and modulating inflammation and genomic stability, regulating genomic stability, all which play a very important role in the development of cancer. Something else that's important to note is that the gut bacteria can influence the type of bacteria that you have in your gut can influence the efficacy of cancer treatment. So if you are undergoing chemo or radiation, there've been studies that looked at cisplatin and the tumor sensitivity to the actual therapies can actually be enhanced by having a healthy microbiome. So the development of the immune system starts early in life. The gut bacteria facilitates its development. It helps with immunosurveillance and cytokine regulation and helping to maintain proper activity of our white blood cells and maintaining an intact intestinal barrier. And there's a crosstalk. We have 80% of our immune system is inside the gastrointestinal tract. And this tissue, very, very dense immune tissue, communicates with the gut microbiome. So there's just microbial crosstalk between the resident immune cells of the gastrointestinal tract with the gut bacteria. And so this development of the gut microbiome starts early in life. There are several factors that influence the development of the gut microbiome. It starts from pregnancy, so the mother's diet, antibiotic use, and genetics, infections, stress. These are all factors that can facilitate and shape the composition of the microbiome of the mommy. And in the mother, these changes that happen, that can happen in a microbiome can be passed down to the child. So the mode of delivery, the mother chooses, whether C-section or vaginal, these different components, mode of delivery can play a role in the type of microbiome that's developed in the baby. And of course, later on in life, and as you see here from this diagram, the baby's microbiome is being shaped, and it starts way back during the time of the mother's pregnancy, delivery, and post-delivery. And so the baby's microbiome starts well back from the time the mother's pregnant, and is further influenced as that child gets older from the feeding patterns or the types of foods that the baby's fed, and et cetera. Now, and it was interesting that many years ago, the whole idea of the amniotic fluid and placenta, that environment being sterile, We now know that the placenta has its own microbiome, and there's been studies that looked at amniotic fluid, and amniotic fluid tends to have a vast array of different types of bacteria. So the baby is swallowing amniotic fluid and it enters the meconium. So we now know that the baby is having exposure to the mother's microbiome in utero, and this facilitates the baby's microbiome later in life. So C-sections are often can be a choice of delivery for mothers, and are sometimes medically necessary. And but researchers have found that 80% of C-section born babies had hospital-acquired bacteria in their guts when they were born, compared with 50% of vaginally born babies. The guts of C-section babies were dominated by opportunistic bacteria such as Enterococcus and Klebsiella, which circulate in hospitals, interestingly. So one remedy for this to help reestablish the gut microbiome in C-section babies was to look into vaginal seeding. There was a pilot study that looked at vaginal swabbing of the mother prior to surgery and inoculating the babies within 2 minutes of birth with the mother's vaginal flora. And they were able to reestablish a healthy microbiome in these babies compared to babies who were not swabbed. Compared with vaginal delivery, C-section delivery is associated with increased risk of immune disorders later in life, such as asthma and allergies, type 1 diabetes, celiac disease and inflammatory bowel diseases, obesity, immune deficiencies, leukemia, and other malignancies affecting young people. And I would say, from my clinical experience working with kids who have any form of atopic disease, if they have severe eczema, one of the important indicators of eczema is the mode of delivery. And I often see this all the time, kiddos who have really bad eczema, or even adults with severe eczema. Some have underwent a C-section. Of course, the mother underwent a C-section, and that could have played a role in the development of their gut microbiome. Breast milk is another way that the immune system is developed, and it's the gold standard nutrition for infants. Breast milk contains very important beneficial bacteria, bifidobacterium, lactobacillus bacteroides, and immunoglobulins, antibodies. This is part of the immune system. Human milk oligosaccharides. These are very, very potent constituents that have antipathogenic properties, modulating the intestinal bacteria. And this is one of the reasons why breastfeeding is extremely important when baby is born. Formula feeding has been shown to alter infant gut microbiome, in favor of pro-inflammatory taxa and increased gut permeability and bacterial load. So it's important, again, as equally important to have a vaginal delivery. We want to also promote breastfeeding, because God made breastfeeding necessary. Milk, the breast of the mother, is so important in being able to establish the baby's gut in order to build the immune system. And this is your gut microbiome is shaped early in life, and it can influence your health later in life. We talked about in previous presentations the role of this bidirectional communication between the gut and the brain, and how the brain can influence motility, secretion, nutrient delivery, microbial balance. And and how in turn the gastrointestinal system can influence neuropeptide production and our neurotransmitter synthesis, and influence stress and anxiety, our mental health and mood and behavior. And so what we're going to talk about on our next presentation, this was an introduction to the gut microbiome. We are going to talk about how the gut bacteria, in particular bad bacteria, how it influences our neuropeptides and the hypothalamic pituitary adrenal axis and our cortisol and intestinal lining, influence in intestinal permeability, and or influence in intestinal permeability and inflammation and chronic disease, and how stress, which this presentation is eventually, we're going to cover this topic, and how our stress levels, how can it alter the gut microbiota and promote disease. So stay tuned. Thank you so much for just joining. Stay tuned, and thank you so much for tuning in for today's True Health Tuesday, and look out for our next presentation on how